Good morning. Welcome to this week's edition of the Turning Points podcast. This week, we had a very cool experience to talk to Ilona Ciunaite, who is, I believe, Lithuanian-born and who now currently lives off the coast of Africa, which is awesome. And we got into some really cool stories that she had, some experiences, and how she kind of came into being a non-dual teacher.
Yeah, she's been teaching, well, she was sort of had an awakening that you'll hear about in the interview when she was in her 20s. That wasn't sort of a traditional awakening. So I'm excited to hear about that, for y'all to hear about that. And she also wrote a book called Liberation Unleashed, and also founded an organization that has, like she said, thousands and thousands of teachers. That's a free service to help people awaken. So I'm happy to share her with y'all, and happy to share the conversation, and feel blessed to have had the conversation and to have met her. So enjoy our conversation with Ilona. Hello, Ilona. Welcome to our podcast.
Hello, Corinne. It's so lovely to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
I'm very blessed that you joined us today, since you just found out today you're moving tomorrow, and you moved from another country recently. Like, I think that was, a month ago, from Lithuania to some island, you said, in South Africa. So thank you for taking time for this. We really, really appreciate it. And you're also someone, the first, I think 20 podcasts we did, it was people that we knew. And then we've sort of been venturing out, the last 20 or so to people we don't know. So it's always, exciting and very different to interview someone you don't know and find out the story. So we'll be finding out your story just as everybody else will who'll be listening. So we start off with this question. Most seekers can recall a time, when their childhood beliefs no longer worked for them, or even when something felt off when they were small children, or have spiritual experiences as small children. So do you remember when you became a seeker?
I remember when I became a seeker, and it's a bit unusual start, maybe unconventional. Because that was the first time me and my husband took some magic mushrooms. And that blew my mind. And it was such an opening. It was incredible. I had such a different experience to normal everyday life that really set me on the journey to find out what's going on, what is reality, how it all works. Because before that, I just lived normal life, like everyone. Without any seeking, just curious, like reading some books, but I wasn't into any spirituality or anything like that. But since that trip, that magic night, something shifted. I felt like old self died. Something died in me, and a new emerged, and the new wanted to know what's going on. So that was the start for me. On that night, I experienced the silence of the mind. The mind completely went quiet. That was incredible. And I would just sit there for hours, like just being. And it felt so delicious. It felt like home. It felt so natural. And I thought, well, if the magic mushrooms can give such an experience, isn't that possible to have that experience without taking anything? And that was my search to find that home, to find that sense of being with a quiet mind, an open heart, and just knowing that everything's okay. That was the beginning for me.
Wow. And do you mind sharing how long ago that was? I
think it was in 2002. Yeah, in one wet November night. Yeah. It was quite a long time ago. And since then, once I had that experience, I tried to find out what's going on. And I went on internet like Neo in the movie, just Googling, looking for answers, what's reality?
Google search, what's reality?
Yeah, what's reality? Because it's not what I thought it was. And why nobody told me that? I got quite angry because nobody told me that what I thought reality wasn't it. But then I realized, nobody can tell you. You can only see that experience for yourself. Yeah. And it took about 8 years to find that home I was looking for.
Yeah.
And I went through. Sorry, please.
No, go ahead. No, I was just going to say, that it's an interesting perspective to have. Like you said, it is somewhat unconventional because I think when people start with psychedelics, there's a misconception that, you found this new state of mind because of psychedelics. And then a lot of people chase that high. They chase, well, now I can only achieve this state of being by doing more mushrooms. And it sounds like you had the opposite, which is, okay, there is an obvious veil of some sort, whether it be the veil of who you are, the veil of reality, or however you want to put that, or whatever the perspective was, that you use that as a launching point to try to understand that veil, not in a psychedelic induced state.
Well, I had many journeys as well, but I understood that if the brain is capable to see that on some kind of substance,
right,
it is there. It's not like the mushrooms are giving me something. It's like they are just removing the obstacles, the barriers, the veil. Yes. So it's in there. Let's find out.
Right. Well, and that's a great, I think that's, from my experience, that is the right perspective, because I've had, multiple trips in different ways, but the objective was never to use that as the only means of discovering that state of being, of peace, but more of either a lens to it or removing the lenses of our own ideas. And we call them, we have these constructs that we have of our own. We have these, we call it programming, our behavioral programming that we have. And you get a glimpse of that when you have these trips. But then, yes, the idea is to strip yourself of that programming in everyday life. And so, I'm curious. So you have this experience, and then you went on an 8-year journey to, what is your language for holding on to that experience?
Well, I just knew I had to find hope. And I tried various things. And my pathway went through sound healing, or binaural beats, or holosync, things like that. Because, I knew there was something to do with the brain. There's all this balance and harmony of the brain. And the first thing I found was this holosync. I don't know if you heard of it. It's like technology with all the binaural beats that was quite advanced in that time. It was quite interesting. And when I put the demo phones on, like with the demo track, I felt like the whole body disappeared. It was only the head left. And I was like, wow, sound can do that. I'm up for it. That's also like, similar-ish. It's not it, but it's similar-ish because the mind went quiet and the body disappeared. So I went that way, just experiencing different states of mind induced by sound. And also I found this guy called Jonathan Goldman. I don't know if you know his name. He's a sound healer for many years. He creates amazing soundtracks. They more like frequencies and sacred chants. And so it was really good help for me to go that way. That was the main thing. I also like crystals. They also give like vibrations, and this helps to tune in into this quietness and just observing mode. I tried various things, but the main thing was the sound. And through that, I got entrained into staying in a more peaceful place than normal everyday life. Because, usually the brain is in this called beta. It's all very noisy. but sometimes it can go into quiet mode. So that was really helpful for me. But I wasn't meditating in a normal way. Like I wouldn't just sit and meditate. That for me was not enough technology. Like technology.
I'm very curious to hear this, because all of the things that you've said so far, they've sort of never worked for me, and I understand they work for so many people, and so I want to hear more about it, and also too, I have a specific question about that, because you said all these things quieted the mind and the thoughts and the noise and the rumination, which of course is wonderful to experience, and yet my experience has been it doesn't really matter if the mind is noisy or not. My expanse of awareness is way in the foreground, and my thoughts are way in the background. So it doesn't really matter how busy my mind is. So I don't identify with my thoughts, right? So my awareness is fine. And so that's been my journey, because I've had this really, very dedicated to meditation, did a 30-day silent retreat. I've tried the headphones. I used to try the headphones, didn't feel anything like meditation or a silent retreat. Mushrooms, of course, Sean and I have talked about mushrooms before. I've done them. To me, it's a fake high. I actually experience with mushrooms and with marijuana, which I don't do very often, I experience more rumination and more anxiety, and my awareness, it's harder to bring it forward or harder to tap into it for me. But I want to help more people with this, because I understand this is the nature, this is the way for some people. So I'm going to maybe hear you talk about maybe that difference, and if you've seen the same thing, and also what you think specifically about it. Your mind doesn't necessarily have to be quiet to experience this. It's easier, but it doesn't have to be. Or do you even agree with that? Okay.
I agree. It doesn't have to be. But at some point, it needs to shut up. That's what I think. At some point, mind has to shut up to get into that awareness, at least for the first time. Well, that's what happened for me, and I witnessed that a lot as well. Like when the mind gets quiet, something comes through, and once that comes through, then the mind is can be noisy or not, but so far, that's what I experienced, not just with me, but with my clients as well, that when the mind gets quiet and the sense of being comes forth, then something clicks.
Right. It's more palpable, right? So I teach awareness yoga, and they go quiet, with this awareness yoga that it brings. It's like a yoga nidra. I'm not sure if you know what that is. So it really brings people, to more stillness, calms the nervous system. And they do absolutely, it's more palpable when there's the stillness. That's why we do silent retreats. That's why we do retreats. That's why we go to see people. Yet so I just want to, hear more about that. Like maybe your experience now. I'm curious about, does it matter if you have thoughts or not?
No, it doesn't matter. The thoughts are there or they are not. It doesn't matter. Yes. It's not about getting rid of thoughts. It's a matter of getting unglued from thoughts. The attention doesn't need to be there. Yeah. The attention can be in the heart. And then everything is seen from there, and the thought is just like a wave at the top of the ocean. It's there, but the focus is not there. The focus is here. And I just want to answer about, you asked about all these substances and the trainings. Well, everyone has their own path. And everyone has to find their own path, and whatever works for me doesn't matter. For you, whatever works for you doesn't matter for me. That's the key. Is just to find your own path, what works for you, and you are being led there. And that's it. So, I wouldn't say go everyone and try magic mushrooms because that will give you something. No, like if you are called, if they're calling you, then yes. If they are not calling you, then you don't need it.
And
what's right for you.
That's what that kind of touches on I think one of the core elements we focus on is, what is the mechanism that draws somebody to that seeking path? Because it just feels like a gift. It feels like a grace where something happens in your life, and it seems different for everybody, but there's a lot of synchronicities in our guests' stories as far as, your mechanism was that the mushroom experience. That's been part of my journey as well. And I know that Corinne has been through meditation. And, it's funny because we might be chasing our tails with that question of what is the mechanism that brings us on that spiritual journey. And it just feels like a grace, and it feels like a gift. And you never quite can anticipate when or how that's going to manifest in somebody's experience. And so it's fascinating how we know how profound that spiritual seeking journey is for people. And it's interesting how different that comes into our space of awareness. And it sounds like however and by whatever mechanism you can use to shake hands with awareness, to have that first introduction, right? That invitation to experience that awareness, however that comes about, is unique to that individual. And then what we're here for is to share our experiences. And that's why we like to hear the story of how people come into that experience, because it gives you this sense of like, you've experienced that too, right? And then we share and grow and have a community, that is, broader than just what we think is possible.
Yeah, it's all completely unique. As you say, it's a gift. And that gift doesn't call everyone. So if you are called to search, to seek, here you go. That's your path. You can't escape that. It's called you. But if it doesn't call, it doesn't call. So it's also, that's your path. Don't need to worry about that. What needs to be seen will be seen. What needs to happen will happen. So, that's all.
Do you feel when, I know it's tough looking back when you say, you had kind of an 8-year experience of, learning and growing through that. Did you feel, like you said, you felt this sense of you just need to get home? You felt like that awareness, that space of peace was home. Did you feel a calling at that time beyond that to be a witness for people? Or was it just that was your driving force, was I just need to get back to home, that feeling of that you had in that first trip?
That was the calling. That was just calling me home all this time. And I thought that somebody else knows where that is. Yeah. And until I thought that, I was just, looking for something that I haven't lost. And as soon as I stopped looking for what other people describe as their own experience, and I started looking at my experience, I found it.
Yeah, it's like the teachers are the pointers. They're not the way. So, I feel like that's what you're describing. The teachers and the stories, I think, can be pointers and inspiration for us. They certainly have. But then I don't think I've been stuck. Like, I do tend to jump around, but I think people do tend to get stuck on the teacher or the teachings rather than the teachings pointing back to themselves. So I love that point that you made. So you did the Google search, but then you kept self-referral coming back to yourself. That's a great point. Yeah.
And I would say I was lucky because I didn't know what was seeking. I didn't know what was enlightenment. I didn't know what were retreats or gurus or teachers. I didn't know any of that. I was just buying some books once in a while, reading them, looking for answers there, and they didn't give me answers. So I was really playing with my own devices most of the time.
Isn't that that's us with my own devices? That's fun. I mean, that's how that works, right? It's we get caught up in that, and I think so much of I think people. It would be healthy for people to understand that sometimes we have to develop a language for how to talk about the self-reflection, the spiritual process. It sounds like that was kind of your experience of coming in it from I don't mean this more from a space of ignorance, because you had not experienced anything or heard anything about it. So when you're coming from that fresh, innocent perspective, then yes, you're going to just like a sponge soak in as much of that experience as possible and start to create a foundation of understanding of what it is that you're, what it is, what the space is that you are now operating from.
Mm. Yeah, that happened to me. When I saw that first time, there is no Ilona running the show. that was the end of seeking. Actually, I was like, wow, okay, got it. So I didn't have anyone to talk to. And it was pretty much impossible to talk to anyone, because if you tell someone, well, look, there is no you as you think you are, it doesn't exist. they just look at you like, what? So, yeah, it felt like there was no way to talk about that to everyday people. And I had to find people to talk to. So that's how this Liberation Unleashed movement was born. Because I was just like, come on, seekers, this is the answer. Okay, you see it, now we can talk. Whew, I have somebody to talk to.
Somebody to talk to, the seekers, indeed. Can you describe to us, you discovered pretty much right away, it sounds like, there was no Ilona, there was no me, there was no like the personality that I thought and all the things that I, kind of dissolved. Now, typically for people, what happens is that happens during a mushroom trip, or even during a retreat, or during an aha moment. And then the personality comes and trickles back in. Can you describe that experience for you? How maybe the personality and the issues either dropped away, or how describe that process for you?
Thank you. That's a great question. Yes, I noticed that a lot. People, right? So this seeing happened 8 years later, right? When I asked this question, is there Ilona running the show? I was like, really? How I never asked that before? That is the least obvious question to ask. Once it was seen that there is no Ilona running the show, yes, the personality continues, but it's not my doing, it's not my owning, and we can continue and play out all these patterns. We could never, ever, ever be confused with something real again. Like when a child sees that Santa is not real, that it's fiction, Christmas continues, presents are still there, but he can never believe back that Santa is a real entity somewhere up north, a magical creature. So that was it for me. Once I saw that there is no real Ilona running the show, that was it for me. It just like it doesn't compute even how that could be believed. So that wasn't the end of patterns or end of personality or end of anything. It was just fresh seeing how this all works. So, yeah, the patterns were still there. The character continued. And the biggest change, I would say, for me, was when I learned to say yes to what's arising. Like really saying yes. And I learned that from Pamela Wilson. Pamela Wilson. She's an amazing teacher.
Don't know Pamela Wilson. No, I've got to look that up. I thought I knew many of the teachers.
She's one of the people that have been around in this scene for a long time.
Really? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Great.
And I was so lucky in 2011. Yeah, half a year, maybe a little bit longer, since I saw that first thing that there is no Ilona running the show. I had such an amazing opportunity to go to her satsang in London. And that's when I saw her work, and I saw how kindly, gently, softly she just undoes the knots without any effort. It was amazing for me. So I just I was really inspired by her, so I started to play with her method and putting my own stuff, my own things that I picked up along the way. And yeah, that's how I developed my own practice, which I call deep looking, and that's what I do now with people. Yeah.
So I want to hear more about that, but I'd like to jump back to 8 years later when you realized Ilona's not running the show. Can you describe that time? Was there something that happened, or just did you realize that overnight, or with a journey, or with sound?
Okay. Well, what happened? In Eastern 2010, Eastern 2010, there was this volcano erupting in Iceland. I remember. that shook my whole world, because I read this Jed McKenna's trilogy, like all 3 books in 13 days.
Yes, we know Jed McKenna.
Yeah. So that shook my belief system to the core, like all these volcanoes. It was intense. And what I got from him is that you have to sit down, shut up, and look for yourself what is truth until you know. That was just clear as day. Like, okay, enough of looking in other people's work or what other people are saying. It's time to really focus on what is truth in here. And there was a period of cutting through the bullshit that was stored in my system hugely and painfully, and that wasn't pleasant at all. And I was questioning my own beliefs and finding out that nothing that I thought was true. Just getting rid of, well, basically all I knew. All I knew that was true just collapsed little by little, painfully. And it took maybe half a year to arrive at that place where I say, okay, I just choose the path of least resistance. Let me be. Yeah, just whatever comes. I can't believe anything anymore. And then I found this forum. The forum was called Ruthless Truth. It doesn't exist anymore. But the people there were just saying, simplest thing, there is no you, look. And I was like, wow, interesting. Because Jed McKenna was about no self, then no self is real self, and all that kind of stuff. And these people were just saying directly, look. That was one word that finished it, really. So I looked, and that's when I saw that there is no one running the show. There is life, there is aliveness, there is everything here, the colors, sounds, sensations, thoughts, feelings, but there is nobody there running the show. And yeah, it wasn't like bright lights or any sensual or energetic experience. It was just simple drop of belief, like that kid that realizes that Santa is not real. Like nothing happened, just the belief dropped. And with that drop of belief, the view changed, but it didn't change completely. Like in the first hour, it took years actually to settle into that. Yeah,
I think. Oh, go ahead. I think just curious about what your practice became for integrating that knowing. So you have the experience of I really love that the Santa Claus analogy. That's too. Fantastic. Actually, my 9-year-old just found out. She just confronted us and asked us if there's a Santa Claus, and we had to tell her the truth. And so it's funny that like just happened this week. And so I love that because it's a really great, you have this belief once you know for sure that that's not a true belief anymore, you can't go back. Once you have experienced that space of awareness, it's very difficult to go back to ignorance of that space of awareness. But like you said, we do have the patterns, the programming, the personality, the character. From my experience, there was a bit of at odds. Okay, so you have this. Oh, and I'm still in that space of there is this character, there's this programming, and as that those false beliefs are unraveling, there is the knowing, and then there's the integration. What were some of your experiences, maybe your pitfalls of your own programming, or what were some of the practices that helped you maintain that space of knowing against your patterned behavior? Does that make sense?
Yes, it makes sense. Yes, thank you for the question. Right. As soon as I realized that there is no self, as I thought that there was, I didn't wait a minute or a second. I felt the need to let everyone know. So I started, beating the drum, inviting everyone to look. Like, hey, look, stop seeking somewhere else. Just ask this question. And that was my practice, to help other people to see that too. So I was new there. I didn't know what happened. I didn't know what's after. As I said, I didn't get exposed to any teachings about that. I found out about Alan Watts or the Ashanti afterwards. So my practice was to help other people to see that truth in their own experience. So I just immediately started writing a blog and pointing and working with people over email, and they started seeing it, and that was just fueling me to share more. And yeah, that's how the Gateless Gatecrashers book was born. It was just actually the very first conversations me and my friend at that time, Ilona, had. And yeah, and then this Liberation Unleashed forum arrived, and more and more people started joining, more and more people started guiding. So that was my practice, really, just by serving right away. I didn't sit and try to figure out my patterns. Whatever was happening, it was going on, but my main focus was to assist, so more people can see it and have somebody to talk to.
Well, that's the way, right? I mean, that's what the age old is what you focus on becomes your experience, right? What you manifestation is what you focus on. If you focus on serving and pointing to that discovery of knowing, and just allowing that to move you instead of trying to figure out how to move intellectually from the patterning, then yes, that would make sense, that you would just have a more compounded experience, and it would grow and grow and grow. And then I don't want to say it creates a new pattern, but it becomes a more purposeful life, because your purpose is in that serving, not in the reactionary state of programming or false beliefs. And so, yeah, that's actually a wonderful practice. Is okay, here's the knowing, go let people know about it, and then you stay in that space. And I the reason I'm kind of laughing, because that has not been my experience. I did the thing you said. I didn't sit there and try to think about it and intellectualize it. That's what I do. So I have this knowing, right? And then I try to figure out how to integrate, right? And create a plan for integration. And she's laughing because she knows.
And talk about it, even in your mushroom journey.
So I'm laughing about it is because you're very to the point of, oh, okay, here's the thing, go share the thing. That's the core. I would say that may be the core calling for all of us in our own way, is to share that knowing. It's a little rare for me to find somebody who actually just does that right away from the get-go. So that's wonderful. Yeah. And I think that's a great lesson for people is there is a way for us to truly just get out of our own way, get out of our own bullshit, get out of our own programming. But it does take humbling yourself. It does take taking action and serving. And really the only thing to do then is to point at that space of awareness, to point at that knowing.
Well, I don't want anyone to have a different idea than it was. It was full of crap anyway. So
as we all are, Ilona, very succinct.
And I probably are still, but at least I'm smiling about this now. I'm not crying anymore.
Oh, that's so right on. That's so right on, man. I think that is a kind of a metaphor for how that works out. Is the crap doesn't go away. The stuff doesn't go away. The personality, the characters, the players, the self-doubt, anything you can think of, it doesn't go away. And I like that you pointed to letting what is coming up come up and come out, and not repressing that, whatever that thing is that is running the show, besides who we're not running the show, but letting that which is running the show manifest through us, manifest through our actions, and be real and true. It's that is a unique and very difficult process, as I've experienced. It's taken a long time to kind of integrate into that.
It's really just saying, okay, life, do whatever you do. I'm here. Just use me the best way you can. Just do whatever happens. I'm not fighting it. I think that's what happened. Yeah. And
then when we do
that, everything.
It's beautiful. That's beautiful. And when we do that, it's like so. I want to find a different word than interesting, but it's
fascinating.
Yeah, it's fascinating, this process of what the full circle we come from. So we're acting as these people that we think we are, these personalities, and then once awareness, we start to surrender to life moving through us, we still kind of look like we're showing up in the same way in life. We still interacting, and yet the internal, that's what I wanted to talk about, is the internal then experience is very different. As you had mentioned earlier, it's not sticky. There's less resistance. There's flow. So life still happens, but there's just flow. So maybe you could speak to that your inner experience as that started to happen for you, even most recently in your move, and going to a new country.
Yeah. Okay. It is actually a good example of like surrendering and just letting life to do what it pleases. You are needed here, you are here. When you are needed somewhere else, you're gonna be there. There's no doubt about that. So for me, it's like, okay, well, we lived in Lithuania only for a couple of years. Before we lived in Mexico, then 20 years in England. So Lithuania was just coming back home and seeing if there is something there for us, for me and my husband, like to find stability, just settle in. We bought a house, and half a year into that house, we realized that, wow, this is an old house. The area that this house is, I don't love. It's okay, you can live there, but I don't have to. So where do I want to be? I want to be somewhere warm, like summer, like it used to be in Mexico. It was a bit too hot there, but let's go back to Mexico. And then one day I called even the embassy and tried to find out how to do all the paperwork so that we can go there not as tourists, but like more like residents. And they didn't reply, and they were like slow. So I thought, Mexico, yeah. There were very nice things there. It was interesting there, but there were some really horrible things there as well. And as I looked some videos about what's going on there now, I was like, I don't want that anymore. Like, yeah, I want the warm, the palms, the beach, but yeah. And my husband says, well, do you know about this island called Mauritius? I'm like, no, where's that? That was like in the middle of August. And I looked some videos like, yeah, beach is nice, weather is good, food is good, culture is nice, yeah, looks clean. Let's go there. So guess what? we find somebody to help to sell the house, like an agent. 2 weeks later, the house is like somebody else wants it. Like we had cats and dogs and everything was taken care of, like effortlessly. I applied for a visa and we had to do a lot of things for the visa, like buy insurance, get the quarantine hotel, find where to live. And there were many things there. And everything just went together. It was 4 days before the flight, we got the visa. 2 days before the flight, we signed the papers to sell the house. And then we just, we're there. It's like this. Like when you don't question where life wants to take you, it takes you there. Like, there you go. Go there. And today we found a house to stay for a year. It's just...
And what is Monisha like?
Mauritius. It's Mauritius. Yeah, I didn't know that. It's a little island. It's 60 by 45 kilometers in the middle of the Indian Ocean. I think 2,000 kilometers off the coast of Africa. So literally in the middle of nowhere. But it's lovely weather. Like right now it's 26, 27, light breeze. It's not sticky or too hot yet. Well, it will be in summer. Summer is coming now. And the food is really nice and everyone is here, very friendly and helpful so far. Yeah, we love it. And today we found a house that is just like, oh my God, this is fantastic. And it's just like 100 meters from the beach. And like, this place has been waiting for me. He called me.
Yeah. Now, are you, during that process, are you as trusting and letting go? Or do you have moments where do you have, fears, or do you experience, why I'm asking is because I'm going through almost literally the exact same situation where in September we found another place about 3.5 hours from where I live. We just built our house 3 years ago and it was our dream house. I actually built it. And then all of a sudden, very similar feeling is like, this is not the place for us. This is not where we're supposed to be. So I'm literally going through the same process that you were experiencing. I have not been nearly as calm as it sounds like you have been, and trusting that, because it's it is it is interesting because I'm experiencing an internal calm about it, but my outwardness is not very calm at all about it, and I'm very frantic and I'm very you have these waves of, okay, here's what life called me to do, so I'm trusting that. But then that 6 week process of making it all happen, you go through the, not you, but I go through the waves of, what are we fucking doing here? And then it just like, it blows your mind. And then that intellectual, mechanism comes into play, and I still trust. And I have not internally faltered on, should we or should we not do this? It's just all of the minutia around it, all the, the getting the visas and all that stuff. Does that shake you at all? Or are you resolute in, this is what life is calling me to do? I trust, I just walk through the process, and then you enter that new space. What is the internal process like for you?
It's like this. If you need to be there, you'll be there.
Yeah.
If you don't need to be there, you won't be there. So we'll see what happens. Like with the visa, for example, it was like 4 days left to the flight. And I called them up and I said, look, it's 4 days left to the flight. We're flying on Saturday. Can you make that visa happen, quicker? Because, it says 48 hours on the website. It's been like more than that. And that I made a call and they sent the visa the same day. So I wouldn't say I would be just sitting there and doing nothing. But what needs to be done gets done. And there is complete trust that it's not me, that I want to go there. It's something bigger than that. So let it do its thing. I don't need to worry about what will happen. Let's see what happens.
Yeah.
Right? And as well, at this time, with all these tests, again, I had to work out when you have to take the test that they will let you through. It wasn't easy, but it kind of, you work it out, but without any panic or thinking that, oh my God, this is not going to happen. It's like, it was complete knowing that, if we need to be there, we'll be there.
Yeah.
So we just, you need to buy a ticket, buy a ticket. You need to book hotel, we book hotel. So what else do I need to do that? Right. I need to do that now. And then just see what happens. So my experience is like this, like a complete trust, complete hands off the wheel. So,
Yeah, because there's things to do, but I know. I heard one thing the other day it was from a movie, Bridge of Spies, with Tom Hanks, and the spy is going to be probably put to death in a couple of days, and the character of Tom Hanks says, "Aren't you worried?" And the spy goes, "Would it help?"
Yeah.
Perfect. Yes. Perfect. Yes.
It's like, okay, Ilona, I'm really curious to know about your relationship with your husband. And, because since you took these mushrooms together and you had this big aha, like, what's that been like? I know it's a solo journey for us, but obviously you all are still together, and it is an issue for some people. And do you mind sharing that?
Okay. Well, that's a good question. Well, we are together since 95. So, long time. And it's been turbulent, especially because I saw there is no Ilona running the show, and he didn't see that then. So imagine one person is like, why worry? What if nothing is happening? Why worry? And the other one is like, come on, let's worry together. I'm worried. So yes, it was a kind of tension between that. But we are still together, and I see that he's teaching me deeper acceptance. And I'm very grateful for him for being such a great support and anchor. Because if I get too high, I forget what's going on. I'm just flying like an air balloon. But he helped me to be on the ground and see what's going on. I deeply love him, and I support him, and he supports me. It's great to have somebody for so many years together and know each other so well. But I wouldn't say that it was an easy journey, or that the learning has finished. No. But there is so much to learn and so much to open up to. So all I want to say, I'm grateful for this life to give me all these experiences, wonderful and ugly, just so that I can look in here and see what else needs to heal. And with that healing, there is more space and more love for each other. That would be the truth.
Beautiful.
Is your husband as trusting about this process that you have with life when life calls you? Are you guys in sync on that mechanism, or does that? Well,
he's trusting because I'm not trusting, but on his own, he's not.
Yeah, very very similar experience on my side of things. I tend to be very trusting. Okay, let's go. Let's very more curious. I mean, that curiosity of let's see what happens. I think that's a great mechanism to develop, or a great tool rather to develop. In the seeking process, because if you come to these crossroads or these new experiences with fear, that it becomes more turbulent. If you come with curiosity, it becomes fun, even if it is difficult. And so, it's interesting how you can develop that relationship with somebody. My relationship was also very turbulent at certain times, and during a lot of tumultuous seeking on my behalf. And so, developing that trust in each other by developing that trust in yourself, in individually, or at least the process that you have inside, to go into these experiences and say, okay, life is guiding me this way. That's a lot to ask another person, to be fully in that space. And I think it takes some time to develop that collective trust between the two.
But I'm so lucky that he's into the same stuff like traveling, exploring. Yeah, I'm so lucky about that. So all I can say, I'm lucky that I have somebody with me and we can share these experiences together. And there's so much to learn still, but I'm open to that. Yeah. I'm sure he's open to that too. So it's good.
Nice.
I have a couple more questions, if you don't mind, that are coming to me to ask you. But first of all, I want to know a little bit more, if you don't mind sharing, about your sound healing. You said, is that one of your main tools that you use to help people, or?
No, that was the main thing that I was interested in.
That helped you.
Yes, but it's not just that. Sound healing is awesome, but there are other amazing things as well. It's not what I use to help people. It's my own choice, let's say that. I like tuning forks. I like all these different frequencies, sounds, and but I use that on myself. I also have this amazing device called Light, creation by Guy Harriman, and he created this machine, a lamp, that gives out frequencies, and all you do is just lay down or sit, and it activates your pineal gland, so you go into these meditative states in like minutes and explore that. It's amazing. Yeah.
Oh, I
love technology. Yeah, if you have an opportunity to try somewhere, if somebody has it in the area, I definitely recommend to try that, because it's an amazing tool to explore your own consciousness, like what's in there.
And what was that called again?
Light. Ajna, like this.
Ajna, 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 Ajna Light. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Yeah, I'll link that below too. I'll maybe email you or if I'll see if I can find more information about that. Because I mean, I'm curious. I just love exploring all kinds of technologies and tools and energetic medicine and all of it. Obviously, like I'm a little bit of breaking out. I mean, I feel like I have been a purist as far as the meditation goes. I live in India part-time. I've been meditating since my 20s a lot, but I do find all of that is like, there was even a point, I think after quarantine, where I just almost felt duped by all the spiritual practices that I had been using for so many years. I felt duped by it. I was like, it's been a mask. And yet I realize now it's been a tool that has helped me along the way, tools. But then it's sometimes time to drop even the best tools. It's everything eventually has to drop away, right? I mean,
true.
Yeah. What was the other one I wanted to ask you? So I've seen, with doing the podcast and then just, with Google and YouTube and things, there are so many more people. I mean, still probably not enough, but so many more people talking about this kind of thing. And I know it's not my place, and I hope I'm not coming off as judging, but so how can I ask this? But how can we, I feel like, okay, so been living in India part-time for 21 years in a place called Tiruvannamalai, where Ramana Maharshi was from, Arunachala, the sacred mountain. And seekers of all kinds from all over the world come to this place. And it's mostly like Advaita, Vedanta, non-dualism. And for the last, many years, I found it to be very heady in some instances and not integrated in the body. And I find people get stuck in understanding it intellectually, but it's very clear that they don't experience it and embody it fully. And that, again, sounds like a judgment. But have you seen, from, And and maybe it's just everybody's journey. Eventually they'll find it, but do you have anything to say about that? Do you understand what I'm trying to say?
Yes, I hear you completely. And well, that's my work. That's what I do every day. As my full-time work is help people to see it experientially. Because as you say, yeah, a lot of seeking, a lot of intellectual understanding, but there is no experience, there is no knowing. So sometimes I get to talk to people that are seeking for 40, even 50 years. I mean, going from teacher to meet another, from retreat to another, and still don't allow that possibility that the answer is here. Or they hear that words that the answer is inside, but they just don't know what that is. So my work is to just take the attention and point it to the right direction so it can be seen and recognized. Yeah. And yes, you can say that a lot of people are stuck in the head. It's just because they simply don't know how and where to look or what needs to happen. The answer is look inside and simply look what is here right now. Only by looking at your own experience, you can taste and experience what is all this points to. It's not pointing out there. Like it doesn't matter what other people talk about it. When it's your time to realize it, you have to look inwardly and recognize what's going on inside.
And
so I meet a lot of speakers, and I don't know if you had a look on the Liberation Unleashed website on the forums. I think it's about more than 7,000 members. That means that's how many people registered and asked for a guide. Less than half of them seen through it. Like the Liberation Unleashed website is basically a seeker comes, registers, and then there's a guide. These people that see it, they come for one-on-one conversation and they talk online, or they now starting to talk on video chat, because that obviously works better than just typing. And they have a conversation until the seeker recognizes what the guide is pointing to. So yeah, about maybe 3,500 people have already seen that, or on some level, or on some degree. We can't know exactly how and what they really see. And we have like integration group, which is called Unleashed on Facebook. It's not much going on there now. So, but yeah, as you say, there are so many speakers now and so many people sharing this that it's not so lost or alone to find your way to integrate. And it's really a unique way to see, unique way to integrate. So this pointing is really just bringing attention back home where the answers are, and learning to hear it and learning to listen to what is being called to and trusting that flow, trusting that life, trusting that call.
It's beautiful. And it's Liberation Unleashed.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
All the services for free as well. Like these guys, they just work day and night, just helping others to realize something amazing that is still happening for 10 years.
That's beautiful. I love to hear that. I'll definitely put a link to that in the notes, in the show notes below. And yeah, definitely put a link to that. What I find personally, and I'd love to hear what you find too. I mean, I'm sure it's as different as there are people, and I don't specifically, like I teach, I am like a spiritual life coach, but I don't teach specifically what you do. I don't feel, I don't know if I ever will, but I don't feel, I don't really consider myself pointing. I don't embody it fully to teach, is what I'm trying to say, I guess. I'm still like percolating myself. But what I do see as a sticking point in the people that I work with Because it used to be like I felt like it was like the Titanic. Doing life coaching was like trying to pull the Titanic, because the mind is always trying to look to land in something comfortable, and it's so beyond. Like it's helping to, whatever way it is, through psychedelics or through meditation or through self-inquiry, whatever it is, helping to guide the person to see that, as you so beautifully put, there's no Ilona running the show. There is no Corinne running the show. Like I have felt that sort of for many, many, many years. It's my person. It's not sticky in there. There's not, and yet but there's still some residue going on that is still continuing to melt away. But I do my best to try to help people, because I feel like that's the sticking point. Even in the most spiritual seekers and in the people that just come for yoga, is there's like this I doing it. There's this I, there is that, that's the main sticking point. Right? That there's an I doing it, that there's the personality, that the I, the identification with the image and the self, that's where everybody's sticky. That's the base stickiness, right?
But that's when you see that there is no I, it becomes so obvious and so clear that this thought I or image I cannot do anything. It just doesn't exist. Whatever is happening is not the I doing it. There is no doer. It's happening. Like, I would ask, did you create the universe? No. Why do you think you are the maintenance guy or girl? Why do you think you can fix it? Or do you need to fix it? Kind of takes away that. Yeah, okay. Another way to ask is, do you control weather? Do you ever think that, all right, I'm making the sunshine today here, it's raining, but yeah, I decided now it needs to be sunshine, and here you go. I made it. I done it. We don't think that. It's pretty clear that we don't control weather. Whatever is here, that's what we have. It's given. It's not a choice. It's something what is showing up, what is happening by itself, without anyone managing it. And then I say, okay, how about this? This thought weather, feeling weather, sensation weather. Are you in charge of that? Is that yours to manage? And it seems so far-fetched, but if you see that there is nobody there to manage weather, it kind of clicks that there is nobody here to manage, what words are coming out, or what thoughts are showing up, or what feelings are here. All we do, we see it. It's given. So if we see it as a given, we can go like, wow, thank you. Thank you, I appreciate it. I agree. Without trying, oh, this is good, this is bad, I don't like this, there's something next, give me something better. That's the fighting, what is not ours to control. So we can just say, okay, no need to fight, nothing is permanent, the bliss is going to pass, the hell is going to pass, let's just see what is here, what I can meet. Just meet as it is. This is life. This is the experience of life. And the freedom is not from something unwanted. The freedom is to feel it all.
The freedom is not from something unwanted. The freedom is to feel it all.
To live life fully as it shows up.
So perhaps, Corinne, I guess my understanding of is that there's only the construct or the thought that people are stuck. It's only a viewpoint that there is a sticking point. It is only a viewpoint that there is percolation or that there is residue. Even that is simply
too much. Even that's too much, as Alea would say. Yeah. Even that's too much. Yeah.
And so it is where people are experiencing this from where they're experiencing it, and that is real and that is true. But there is there's no way to manage that. There's no way to hasten that process of somebody's understanding or knowing. That's what I'm getting from that.
Yeah, bringing back Santa, the good old friend. Like, okay, Okay, the kid realized that Santa is not real. Now the Christmas came and it's shitty Christmas. Parents are arguing, horrible stuff is going on. That doesn't make Santa more real or less real. It has got nothing to do with Santa at all. So this stickiness, this meanness, these patterns have got nothing to do with I at all, because the I is only created in a narrative about the I. It's a fictional I that supposedly is here because it must be, because the language says so. But really, there's no I to stick to anything or do anything. It doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Man.
Don't need to put that on Santa, Santa's fault because his parents are arguing.
No. Oh, Santa's a beautiful construct. It's a wonderful construct. So, well, man, I love it. I appreciate the calm and the resolve that you're speaking from, and I appreciate that you've shared your journey and kind of where you started and where you come from. It's always interesting. There's so many synchronicities from what you spoke about to some of the things that I've experienced as well, and it's interesting that can happen in Lithuania or in Mexico or in off the coast of Africa, and it is still there's a calm and there's a peace knowing that there is, and especially some of the teachers that you mentioned on the podcast that neither of us have heard of, that are guiding and pointing to this truth that we're discussing right now. And so thank you very much for sharing. I really appreciate having you on, and we'll definitely look into some of the other practices that you have online and some of the forums that you've talked about, because I think that's a great community to point to, because if you have questions, you need somebody to ask them.
Mm.
Okay. Thank you. Until we meet again, Ilona, keep shining your light. So blessed. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me here.
Awesome. Enjoy your new move. Enjoy your new house, and we'll talk soon. All right.
Great. Thank you.
And we are in the Say More section with Ilona. I really enjoyed that conversation. It was reminiscent of when we talked to Don. And before we started the conversation, Ilona did say, like, just so you know, I'm not used to talking about myself and my experiences.
And my stories. There is no story anymore.
And so we were prepped on that. And that was, I think at first I was kind of like, that'll be interesting, because that's pretty much what we talk about is people's stories. But even in lieu of that, I was thankful with how the conversation unraveled. And I think I enjoyed that she did have an unconventional kind of awakening experience. That her first experience was with psychedelics, which is interesting, because I think the misconception is that, you took mushrooms, of course you got high, and of course you saw a different dimension and blah, blah, blah. But I think what the most important element there, and I believe I touched on this, was that the mushrooms were just the tool to experience that space of awareness, that space of peace. And then her mission or her goal or the drive or movement was to, well, and as she put it, go back home. That showed her home. It showed her that internal peace. And she had a knowing that could be experienced without psychedelic intervention. And I think that is the main ingredient, is because we talk with people who have these experiences of profound clarity. And it could be fleeting. It could hang on for a while. And then there's an integration process, and then there's a knowing process. And that takes some time, but we never know what is necessarily going to give us that first glimpse into that knowing. Behind the veil, we say it sounds so mysterious, the veil. And it's like, well, it is the veil. It's the facade of ego, the facade of programming. And we never know what's going to give us that glimpse. And it's really hard to force that glimpse onto somebody else. it just seems to happen. And I enjoyed that we kind of touched on that in the conversation.
Well, you know, with Zachary Adama, it happened by him reading a physics book.
Yeah, right.
You know, and what you had mentioned, you'd referenced Don, and it was Don Oakley in the beginning.
Yes. Yeah, sorry.
You know, who's the one of the founders of Wellbeing Center, where we go in Tazewell, Tennessee. And I mean, that's what the teachings say, is there's many as many experiences and paths of awakening as there are people. And what I wanted to share about the psychedelics is, I was listening to, must have been Paul Stamens the other day, because he's the mushroom guy, and he had said in the studies, you know, people have all these experiences on psychedelics, and you would think that the part of your brain that shows that is working, like the rumination part of your brain, would be more active, but actually it's less active on the psychedelic experience. So what's happening is people are going beyond the rumination and experience the expansiveness of awareness, and it even shows that in the studies, in the activation studies of the brain, that what is activated during the psychedelic experience. Now, I'm not a proponent of saying go out and do psychedelic mushrooms or psychedelics and you're gonna awaken, but it is becoming more prevalent in our culture all over the world. And you know, certainly Sean and I have talked about it, you know, on talking like you're not there. Certainly you and I have talked. I got into my own world for a second. I talked about it before. And it's something I definitely we're both interested in. And for me, what I've been trying to rectify, you know, and we talk about this, like you come from a more open to it. I've been trying to rectify coming from the traditional meditation, spiritual path, rectify awakenings happening like that. So that's actually the first story I've heard. I've heard people getting glimpses from mushroom journeys, but I haven't heard somebody like awaken. And she said it did take another 8 years to unfold. But that's kind of, I feel like that's encouraging for people that are drawn to that, and yet not to use it too. Because I think, have I mentioned to you the girl I met in Jamaica, JJ, and she had said she'd had many experiences with psychedelics, and she felt like they reminded her how magical life was. But then I said to her, you know, but that doesn't want to stand alone. Like, do you have a meditation practice to help like integrate that or expand that understanding? And then sure enough, that kind of simmered with her maybe, and she asked to learn how to meditate, and really felt like the last journey she did was going to be the last one. So that's what I wanted to share is just like anything, you know, we don't know how we're going to awaken. We don't know, and it might not even be we're trying. Obviously she wasn't trying. She was just taking mushrooms with her husband. But that happened to her, but it's not guaranteed that will happen to you. But you know what I'm saying? It's like whatever you have to feel. And I think that's what she really articulated. I felt like in the interview as well, she articulated that it's different for everybody.
Yeah. And I think that there's a lot more happening. And I know you know this. There's a lot more happening in an experience like that than just the psychoactive property intervention. The set and setting, what your mind, what your spirit is set for, what your emotional state is set for. It's not so simple, and nothing's so simple, right? That's the thing, is like her glimpse into a spiritual awakening happened during a psychedelic trip. The psychedelic trip did not activate her spiritual seeking journey. I think that is what is the difference. Because if you say, I had a spiritual seeking experience because of the mushrooms, it points to the mushrooms being the cause of that. And I think what I guess my initial comment about that is, being put on a spiritual journey is an incredible gift. And it happens and is manifested in ways that we can't necessarily anticipate. So fixating on a certain practice or experience as the thing that brought you into that spiritual seeking journey, I believe is a misstep. And I think that was compounded by because she said that this is the glimpse I had. Mm-hmm. It happened to be during a mushroom trip, but then there was an 8-year process of, creating a foundation for what is happening now to me, because it's not so simple as just having that and being like, oh, cool, I'm awake now. And now I'm just going to go out be in the world. There are the constructs and the personality. And it's interesting coming from that, okay, the veil drops for a period of time and we have this experience of awareness in that trip. But then coming down from that and not having the tools to carry that experience with you. And more than having the tools, having the openness and the stripped down vulnerable nature to carry that with you. Because we oftentimes, and even I think she kind of laughed at herself about it, because she's like, as soon as I had that, I just wanted to go toting it around and just telling everybody that this is it. And she's like, but you can't do that because you sound kind of like a crazy person. And there's people don't have the language in all the situations to talk about that. So it is an extreme gift to have that experience, but it is extremely important then to have that community or a teacher or some kind of a practice to point at how to integrate that awareness into your life, I think. And that is when, that is what I've experienced as a tumultuous journey. I know you've had a profound meditation experience, which lasted for quite some time. And then I imagine there was some integration, even after that. And when you say there was integration, I think there's always integration. There's always more facets of the personality to discover. There's more programming. I mean, I'm finding stuff about myself in this 6-week process of this move that I did not even anticipate existed. And the practice of understanding and knowing how that all plays out in this play of consciousness is really helping maintain that peace and calm during that process.
Yeah.
That was a lot of words, but
but that's what you do.
It just comes out. So
yeah. It was funny because as soon as she hung up, you started laughing at me, and you're like, "I can read you so well." Yeah, because I listen to a lot of podcasts, whether it's for myself or for doing homework for Turning Points, and I love Rick Archer on Buddha at the Gas Pump. I just think he's been doing it for 10 years. He's over 600 interviews. I call him like the Tim Ferriss of spiritual interviews. And the funny thing is you and I didn't know about him when we started our podcast. We had no idea, and even though he doesn't focus on everybody on their spiritual turning points, he does end up asking, especially if it's his first interview with them, what their journey is, because it really is, his podcast is based on, people, not just authors and teachers, but people with spiritual awakening.
Yeah.
That's sort of what his byline is. So I've been learning from him, and that there's a balance when we interview of being open and curious and wanting to learn, but then there's our personal stuff, of course, that comes in of either wanting to learn or having an assessment, because that's what I find myself. That's just what I do with spiritual people that call themselves spiritual teachers. I assess. I want to know, where are you at, which is totally, I know, not coming from a place of curiosity. Well, maybe it is. Maybe I'm getting better at it. And so there were a few times where I was checking her language, just sort of to see if it aligned with what my truth is, right now. And And you had said there was some specific things that she articulated that, or you couldn't sort of tell where she was going because of maybe our cultural difference. You know, she's from Eastern Europe, and that's sort of what I noticed at the beginning too. She's from Eastern Europe, we're from North America, and there's some differences in. Well, there's definitely different emotions and how we're raised and how we articulate things and all that stuff. So, can you recall any specific points about that?
So I agree with you. Like, kind of, I mean, I guess I'm generally cynical of most people, and I really pay attention to how they're using their words. But more, I watch how people respond when they're challenged.
Yeah.
And there were moments when it was a tough question, or it was, because I think the initial conversation of like, I don't talk about story, I don't talk about my story that much. Well, naturally, we're going to challenge that and be like, really? Because that, like, it's hard to believe that, and I think when we're asking people about their journeys, that is a story because it is coming from the past. And I think what I appreciated was her honesty about, I mean, now almost 20 years later, as I talk about that process for myself, it sounds all hunky dory, like, oh yeah, I had a mushroom trip, it was spiritual, I read some books, and then now I'm here. She was very adamant, like, no, it was not all that cut and dry. It was not easy. But I think the core tenet of where she stood about that is, she said that when she knew that there is no Ilona running the show, she was set to task to serve, inviting other people to experience that. And so is it a fine line between intellectualizing spirituality to the point where you repress the experience versus actually setting to task to be in that space of awareness. It can be very difficult to tell where people are actually coming from in that, because it can seem like it comes from an intellectual space, but and that people aren't experiencing the emotional, or the thoughts aren't coming up. And I think Alea is a great example, because you would think by talking to her that the water is always calm. So it takes her being adamant and honest of saying the water is not always calm, but the water is always just the water, and the water, it creates a wave, it comes up, and it takes a practice of allowing it to come up and then allowing it to pass. So one of the things that I think you're looking for, if you don't mind me pointing at you here, because at one point in the conversation, you mentioned that you don't feel like you embody the teaching well enough to be a teacher. And this was the first time where it kind of clicked for me that if you have had an experience of awareness, deep peace, deep content, then you are a witness to that deep well, that universal waters of that. That is all you need to start being a witness for others of that awareness. And I think, and this is something I've recognized in myself I'm doing, is like, but I don't know it deep enough, Winky. I don't know it enough. I haven't intellectualized it enough to call myself a teacher. And I think I know I might be labeling this, I might be labeling her and other teachers as, well, you're a teacher because you understand this more than I do. And I don't think that's where she's coming from. I know that's not where Alea's coming from. It's not a knowing. It's I have been a witness to it. It is calling me to speak about it. And I think, and even Ilona has, talked about her apprehension to, but her apprehension to talk about something that is guiding her to talk about, that is ego. And that is programming, that is fear, that is judgment. And I wonder if that's kind of a similar mechanism that I know I'm dealing with, and it seems like you might be dealing with, is how can I call myself a teacher of this stuff when I don't even have a handle on it? I don't even know what it is fully. I don't know how to I'm winking because, I don't know how to intellectualize it fully to be able to talk about it. And yet spirit is moving you to speak on it, to be a witness in your own way as it manifests through you. And if you're anything like me, I want to be proficient at it before I even start. And I think that's what's really healthy about having this organization for spiritual integrity, where there is a checks and balances of spiritual teachers to say, hey, I hear where you're coming from, but I think that this might be something you're missing, or this might be a better way to explain it. But having a teaching community where you can go and find those tools to continually hone that craft of being and sitting in spirit, and allowing that spirit to guide you instead of you and me trying to guide that conversation. And when she got to that point of her experience where she said, once I knew, I couldn't not know again. And then it moved me to just start being a witness to it. And I just surrender to that teaching. That, for me, is what non-dual teaching is at the core. It is allowing the teaching to come through you, not being the teacher of it. And that's where I know I'm stuck on, and it seems like you might be stuck on that too, because you said, I don't know if I fully embody the teaching. Maybe it's about surrendering to that force.
Yeah, I embody what I embody. And that's what Adyashanti teaches. He said, you just teach where you know from, teach from experience.
Yes.
And that's, I guess, when, if I, as long as I stick to that, then I'm just, teaching to my experience. And even as I was saying that, I realized that my coaching has gone from, life coaching with the Tony Robbins, And sometimes I do deal with some of that, to helping people know, awareness, the awareness that they are. So I do that already. I just don't consider myself like an Alea or but I'm not. I'm a Corinne,
Well, I don't think Alea considers herself an Alea. I
Right.
don't. And I know that Don, and I know Patty, I know that for a fact. It's making yourself available to invite people to experience that space of awareness that you have experienced, and continue to grow in your relationship to that space of awareness. You invite that awareness more often in your life than not. And it's funny because I intellectualize the credentials of that. It's like, well, but what are my credentials for being able to speak about awareness? My credentials, quote unquote, are that I have developed a practice of surrendering to spirit. I'm not resolute in that practice. I'm not perfect in that practice. I know that, but I'm continuing to learn continuously. Thank you. Learning and growing and deepening in that experience of awareness in all facets. And that is it. That is where that connection happens. And it's not a teaching that you can force on people, and it's not a teaching that you can plaster all over the halls and try to force people into that, because we know that people discover that knowing on their own. They come into that understanding and they come to that experience on their own. We just need to be available in all of the. We need to be available in all of the things we do to offer that invitation to people to experience that awareness.
Yeah. Yeah. And whether it's the person, you meet at the gas pump, or you're a family member you're sitting next to, or somebody on the plane, or a podcast, you just emanate from where you're from, and, And that's what Alea has helped me to do, even though I was sort of on the path of stripping away the teacher for the last few years. But she's really, sometimes I'm a student, sometimes I'm the teacher. And, I just happen to be, Rupert Spira does that a lot too. He's like, I just happen to be talking about this because you're asking me questions, but I could just as easily be the one asking the questions in a different situation.
And that humbleness is kind of my litmus test for not if are you a good or a bad spiritual teacher, but it creates a foundation for, I don't even want to say where somebody is at spiritually. It points to what their focus is on. And, as soon as she said, my focus is on doing the work of spirit, it's at that point, I can't, not that we should judge, but I can't judge any further. I can't reconcile anything more than, oh, okay, right on, man. Like, you're doing the work of spirit. That was one of the most moving elements of when we talked to Patty, when in her, at one point she was describing her experience, and she said, I really haven't struggled in my experience. My spiritual journey has been relatively easy. I haven't, I found a great community, and I haven't struggled. And that was hard for me to reconcile. It was hard for me to be with that, knowing that so many other people have. And then she said, and take that too. Take the good, take the bad, take it all, and put me to task. That is the foundation of living in that pure awareness and doing the work, if there was work to do, of, inviting people to that awareness. And also, that's the foundation of Christianity. It really is.
Right.
It really is.
Right.
And that's when you find that truth, when you find the awareness, when you experience it, and then you surrender to it and say, put me to task. And that was, I guess, the other thing that she said in the podcast was, I just surrender. I surrender to it and trust in it completely. That's whether that's true or not. So then, the judgment mind, right? Because when she said that, I was like, oh yeah, right. All the time, because I think I even teased her a little bit. I was like, you don't have any, and she's like, of course, that there are problems that arise, but if you're meant to do this, spirit will move you through that. There's that much trust in that. And I think that's a level of trust that I'm getting to. I'm learning to trust that too. And when I see that and I hear that, that makes me feel like that person is experiencing the true depth of awareness.
Problems arise, but you don't have a problem with the problem.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's been an interesting, boy, has it been a confusing time right now. Cause I'm admittedly outwardly just almost chaotic at times with this move that we're going through. Cause it's, it's happening in real, that was so interesting when she's like, yep, they're just so quick. I'm like, fucking weird. Cause that's what I'm experiencing too. And Meg and I've had this conversation cause, there'd be moments where I'm out. I mean, I have been having butterflies, all through my chest, through my belly, just a rush. And my heart is just having palpitations all of a sudden. And it's this physical manifestation of a movement. And it makes me just fucking lose my mind sometimes. I'm just just go crazy. And I can feel all this programming and this worry and all this stuff is just floods to the foreground. But if I'm being totally honest, it hasn't changed anything with my relationship to the thing that moves me to look at the move, the thing that guided me to move, and the thing that is carrying me through the move. That has not moved a bit. There's thoughts, there's questions that are doubting it, but my experience internally about the whole thing has been relatively calm. It doesn't look like it. It really doesn't. And what's cool is allowing that to come up and, just, it's like percolate over and just kind of spill into the experience. It's kind of, I think she talked about the volcano where she had this like big shift. It's like this volcano happened and then this big move, and it just brought her into that awareness. There's only so much of that pressure that can be repressed, and it will manifest in some way. I'd rather just enjoy that process of how that comes out and just be sporadic for a second. But ultimately, I think the coolest part about this journey and what I resonated with her was, at the core of this move is the ability and the space to share what I've been given with other people. That is the core nature of the move. And it's just staying in that trust in that. It's not easy for me, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. Don't have any problem with the problem.
Uh-oh, she sunk. She got it. It hit her. Yeah, the problems come up. Don't have problems with the problem. Yeah.
Yeah, we deal with life. I love my favorite saying. It's Maharishi Mahesh Yogi: see the job, do the job, stay out of misery.
Yeah.
So there is a lot of movement happening in your life. There is a lot of moving pieces. There is a lot of emotions with your family and with the kids. And you just deal with it, sometimes 5 things at once, and you just do the best you can to just be in it, and don't have a problem with the problem.
Yeah.
Don't worry about, it's like that Bridge of Spies that I brought up.
Yeah.
Would it do any good to worry about you're going to be assassinated? You're probably going to be assassinated. Aren't you worried? Would it help?
Yeah. No. It's fun. And that's a fun place to explore. It's having that notion, kind of settle into the experience for a while. It's just kind of like, what else? What other things do I interact with that are like that? What other added baggage or added emotional stress am I putting on something that isn't actually helping?
Well, you can tell whenever you have a mental debate with yourself. That's when you can tell. So if you're present in the moment, you're dealing, doesn't mean there's not going to be adversity. You just deal with it. Doesn't mean you're not even going to not feel, like unhappy with it. But you notice that maybe things are difficult, but if you're having a mental debate with yourself, should I be feeling this? Should I do that? Da, 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 da. That's when you're not just sort of present to what is.
Yeah.
That's when you're seeing the job and you're debating about the job and you're not just doing the job. See the job, do the job, stay out of misery. What you're doing when you're angst about stuff or when you're fighting life, you're seeing the job, you're debating about it, you're taking it to dinner, you're having breakfast with it. You're living it and then not doing the, and so it's a balance, I think, of, it's that no resistance. I mean, all the teachers talk about that's no resistance. It's like, doesn't mean life isn't going to be hard and that you'll even experience pain. I mean, that's what Nicola and I talk about. Like, life is joy and life is also pain. When we're in these physical bodies, it's both emotional and physical pain. But the more we can be present and deal with things that are in front of us to deal with, because there's always going to be something in the next moment or the next day to deal with. But if we can come to it clearly, process whatever needs to be processed in the moment, do what needs to be done in the moment, and then let that shit go, and then go on to the next moment. And if we can keep showing up clearly without baggage from the past moments, and just keep showing up clearly, and that's freedom.
Yeah.
That's where the freedom is.
Yeah. I'm going to find what she said. There's a comment that she said, freedom is.
I remember.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is, but yeah.
I have shit memory for that. I'll find that again. Cause that was something that hit me, really, really, cause it is the first part of it was the misconception. And then the second part, it was the truth. And I was like, oh man, hell yeah. So yeah, I'm we joke, we go on these retreats and we joke about this, team aliens or team critical mass, and it's, I'm wondering if that's a construct or a perspective, a limited perspective that I have is, that things are needing change. I'm projecting my expectation on the world in that conversation. And yes, there is suffering. Yes, there is struggle. And yes, we have the means to provide a much better culture and society for each other. And we're not as a whole human family doing a great job at creating that for everybody. But having conversations like this and knowing that there's a whole community of thousands of people that are looking and asking questions, it makes me feel like I'm just missing a piece. I'm just missing something. And really what I need to do is focus on expanding out my understanding, my ability to invite people into that awareness. And that will do more than sit here and wonder if we're going to hit that critical mass or if we're going to have a bunch of aliens come down. You know what I mean? And
Yes.
that's what my perspective shifted on that. And I know we can still fuck around and joke about it because it's hilarious, but
And get t-shirts about it.
Oh, let's make some t-shirts. Go ahead.
There's an account on Instagram that does have t-shirts with the aliens. The
Nice.
aliens are going to come and save us. Yeah.
Well, we have the ability, and I think we are saving ourselves. It's hard to do more than what we can do. So we just do what we do and do what, spirit guides us.
Yeah. The next clear step, just what's unfolding right now in the present moment. Don't have a problem with the present moment. Don't have a problem with the problem. If there's a problem. Yeah.
If there's even a problem.
If there's even a problem.
So.
Oh, all right. Well, I love you. Thank you for another great conversation. I missed you last week.
I know I'm going through some craziness, so we might have some gaps here, but we'll get back on track once I'm settled a little bit. So thank you for your patience.
All right.
Love you. Have a good
Love
night.
you.
Bye.